Hello! If you don't know who I am, well, that's understandable, as this is my first YouTube video, with me talking in it, that I haven't deleted out of embarrassment. Let me introduce myself. You can call me Arnab. I always wanted to try YouTube, but was never confident enough to actually try it. You read the title. I'm making a Pokemon region and showing some of my concept art. So before we start talking about Pokemon, here are some things that will put the things I'm talking about into context. So my first language isn't English, it's Arabic, and I taught myself English by mistake. Maybe I'll make a video into that into a video. So I'm Arab, specifically Sudanese. If you don't know where that is, it's below Egypt on the map. Used to be the largest country in Africa before it split in two in 2011. It's the country with the most amount of pyramids in the world, and currently, Anyway, so why am I talking about this? Well, because that's the country I'm basing my region on, along with Egypt. Why, you may ask? Well, because I'll never see anyone make a region based on Sudan. And every fan region I see based on Egypt, it's always ancient Egypt. Never anything beyond that. Which I think is kind of sad that the only version of Egypt that people like is no longer representative of the people living there. So the main idea I have for the story is that it takes place in two regions, with the Pokemon League being joined between the two countries. So let's start with some Pokemon. You're going to have to excuse my design process as it is a little unorthodox, because when I drew these I wasn't going to make them into a video. So I started by sketching some things that inspire some of the Pokemon. Not the sponge, I don't do anything with it on this page. It's going to be some for the water starter. I drew this so long ago I don't remember why I started drawing these. And this is when I just recently got Procreate, so you'll see me try a bunch of brushes. Also, none of these designs are guaranteed to stay. I just designed them to start something. The first thing I start with is an idea for a regional form. The first one being an idea for regional Smeargle, which is now a makeup artist that uses kuhl, which is a type of cosmetic similar to eyeliner, that is worn by both men and women since ancient Egypt. It was used to protection against eye ailments, and protecting the eye from the sun. You'll see that I gave him applying a rod at the end of his tail, and the shape of Kuhl tube, more so a modern one in the middle of its tail. Also, since this Pokemon is now a makeup artist, I give it henna pattern and bangles. Next up is another regional form for a Bombi that is inspired by honeycomb bread, which is a Middle Eastern dessert that consists of bite-sized buns filled with cheese and placed together very closely to make a hexagonal structure, hence its name. Then it's covered with syrup or honey. Now I want this Pokemon to evolve into something other than Vespiquen, but I haven't decided that yet. Also, it's bug dark instead of fairy because it's not actually made of bread. It covers itself in syrup to trick predators into trying to eat it, just for it to attack them. Also, I made this Pokemon before Gen 9 was announced, so I had no idea we were getting a fairy bred dog. Now for the third regional form. I did 3 regional forms for practice the Pokemon art style and compare it to the actual thing. While I didn't get the style completely right, it was still good practice. So the unknown on the screen is simply the Dod in Arabic alphabet instead of the letters in the English one, since so far all the regions exist are either Japanese, which I don't think the language you could feasibly turn into different shaped creatures, just because based on the amount of characters being necessary to make any word, or a region where the main language is still written with Latin script. I thought it would be cool if Unknown got to look like different languages, with 28 new forms and an evolution. And might you be wondering, why did I make it normal psychic? Well, because this Unknown sings. Why did I say it like that? This Unknown sings. The evolution evolved into one of the words of the lyrics to the Arabic Pokemon opening, which is the same opening for the first, with the same opening as Gotta Catch 'Em All for the first 6 seasons. The season 7 through 22 never got dubbed until Journeys, and then it got a new Arabic opening, but it's not as iconic as the first one. Pause. I'd like to mention that the anime was the only piece of Pokemon media that the Arabic world experienced, since Nintendo handheld systems were never popular here, and JRPGs in general never got translated into Arabic at the time. Many Arabs' first time playing Pokemon game was Pokemon Go in 2016. As for me, I didn't know Pokemon were a game series until the tail end of the life cycle of Ultra Sun and Moon. Not joking. My first and only Pokemon game is Pokemon Shield. I want to play Scarlet and Violet, but I can't afford it at the time. But I did watch enough playthrough of every Pokemon game, so at least I know what goes on in everyone. Tangent over. So the unknown evolution evolved into one of the words in the Arabic opening. But not exactly. I'll use the word shown on screen as an example. The word shown on screen is the word hulum, which means dreams is the first word of the Arabic opening. Not quite. The word is actually ahlum in the opening. But I changed the word to its base form. You see, in Arabic, most words come in a base of three letters. You add letters in the middle, beginning, and end to make it pronouns and plural and other articles. So I just turned the word into its base form, and I get 31 words that make up the lyrics of the Pokemon anime opening, not repeating any words. Next is the first fully original Pokemon. He's the only line I have a name for, which is Hitakul, the water molecule Pokemon. So as you can see, it's a water molecule, and I want this to be a new type of Pokemon, like Ultra Beast and Paradox Pokemon. I'm calling it Nano Pokemon, which are Pokemon that were brought to a bigger size when they were previously microscopic, and they are Pokemon that range from 2 nanometers to 2 millimeters. These are Pokemon that exist. There are Pokemon that exist that I'm recognizing into this branch of Pokemon. Those being Solosis line and the Cryogonal. I was going to say Cryogonal line, but I don't think it's evolved. I don't want to include any of existing bug type into this category because I like bug type being giant bugs. It's fun. I'll talk about the other inspiration evolution for Hitakul later on the videos. I do have more sketches of it. The next Pokemon is a Ghost type evolution based on Sheik Ghost, Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas, and Labrats. Also, I'm introducing more than 2 evolutions in this region because aren't naturally occurring like the rest. They're the result of animal testing and genetic mutilation, not mutilation, and body augmentation, and trends within those fields of research. So the Ghost EV has mouse-like features because mice are the most commonly used animal in animal testing. I'll return to it in a minute. Here you see me shortly switching from the evolution to the Pika clone, which I don't have much to say about. It's just a Jerboa with a star at the end of its tail. It's ground type because Jerboa. I need to workshop this idea. Now returning to the Ghost evolution because I wasn't happy with the face proportion. I'm much more happy with it now. Next is the Steel type evolution, which is based on metallic implants that are used to replace some parts and joints, a motorcycle, and accelerate from Ben 10. Which again, I repeat, I designed this concept of these Pokemon before Gen 9 was even announced. So I didn't even know we were getting 3 motorcycle lizard and motorcycle engine Pokemon in the same generation. Here's proof. The next Pokemon is the only Pokemon I know I'm not going to include in the region anymore because it's just too cruel. It's basically a chance of failure for trying to get any of the new evolutions. Which the method I'm thinking of is that you have to bring a Pokemon of single type that you want to evolve your Eevee into. Which is why I want to include a flying type Eevee, because the only existing pure type Pokemon are Tornadus, Rookidee, and Corvisquire. Don't ask me why the only 3 Pokemon. I guess Rookidee and Corvisquire are less normal than the other regional birds. Why am I talking like this? The next evolution is my favorite. I might need to tweak the design a little, but I really like the idea. It's a fighting type Eevee, which I'm kind of surprised this idea hasn't been done yet. Fighting type that fights with its antlers, which is the purpose of them. Inspired by lop-eared bunnies, jackalope, and virus Shopapilloma virus. Or as my sister just informed me while I was doing the research for this, in humans it's HPV, but for rabbits it just causes tumors that resemble horns to grow out of their face. It's also theorized to be the source of the jackalope myth throughout the different cultures. Also, I sketched a dragon-type Eevee based on Chimera and crossbreeding. Here are the sketches. The next Pokemon is a 3-stage bird, specifically based on secretary birds, and that's about where the inspiration ends. Yeah, it's a weak concept. I need to rework it. Also, the secretary bird is a natural bird of Sudan. The last Pokemon is another Nano Pokemon, based on a tardigrade. Again, nothing more than that, although I did make a bug dragon, because that felt like the most fitting type for the tardigrade, because they can survive anything. Next up is the concept art for the protagonist. They are just two 11-year-olds. There is nothing more to say about them. I dress in both casual clothing more than anything else, cultural or traditional for the countries. Also, something I'd like to point out is that you'll see the boy has a lotus on his shirt while the girl has a hibiscus on her waist. That's because the working title for this game was Pokemon Lotus and Hibiscus, but that's not the case anymore. And they're both decked out in Pokemon themed clothing because something of a trend in these countries is that children will wear clothes filled with pop culture, covered in pop culture characters more than anything else. I dressed them both as to what an 11-year-old would think is cool. I named them Nargis for the girl and Basil for the boy. I know that spelling is Basil, but in Arabic the name is pronounced Basil. Next, Next up, the Hitikyu line. So I designed the protagonist before these Pokemon on purpose because I wanted them to take some element from their protagonist, because they're based on water elemental. An Aqareen, a type of jinn in Islam that is a spiritual double to a person, and its job is to tempt a person it's assigned to committing evil acts. They're popular in Middle Eastern horror stories. And the story that I remember as a child liking about them is that if you ever get bullied by someone, your Qareen will take revenge for you by making the person sick. Which made me ironically adore them as a child because I didn't have many friends as a kid. My sad life aside, I designed the next two stages to be kind of like a weird mimicking creature that evolves into mimicking Pokemon that walk on four legs to eventually evolving into mimic of the person who caught it. So the form will change depending on if you choose the female protagonist or the male protagonist. Isn't that gimmick fun? And the name come from, for the first one, Hitikule, H2O, ridicule, molecule, quadu, quadruped, do, aquarine, aqua, anqarine. I'll explain the idea for the region gimmick next, which I'm calling yarn forms. Let me explain. These forms are Pokemon taking on the forms of themselves from fictional stories about them in the Pokemon world. Of course, inspired by folk tales and fairy tales from the real world. So how about we take a look at an example? The Pokemon I'm designing here is Yarn form Volbeat. It's a Volbeat that is now designed after a Will-O-the-Wisp. Other ideas I had: a story of the honest woodsman Tinkatan holding two axes, one being made of silver, the other gold. Russian Santa Claus Dilibird. Little Red Riding Hood Mimikyu. Black Swan with Swana, and some ideas I'll share later on. So what's the lore for this gimmick? Well, in this region, a certain mythical Pokemon is causing all of this, and while I don't have a name for them yet, I'll explain their lore. The Pokemon travels across the world once a decade to gather entertaining stories from around the world. It then uses its power to make these tales a reality, where it makes these trees that grows these berries that if certain Pokemon eats it, they transform into their yarn form. Also, it's called yarn form because that's another word for fairy tale. My nose is itching me. Now, for the Pokemon itself, it's based on a Hakawati, or an oral storyteller, and a hand puppet Hakawati specifically. Even more specifically, this puppet,
أنا الحكواتي أنا وعندي حكاياتي أنا الحكواتي أنا وعندي حكاياتي أحكي حكواتي أيوة وأجمل غنياتي ودايما بهديكم هدية أحلى تحياتي أيوة أنا الحكواتي أنا الحكواتي صفقوا
There was a little segment on Sudanese channel called Ashuruq. I used to watch as a kid. It was basically a puppet show where this character tells stories, fairy tales, folk tales, and little songs. I barely remember anything about it, and I doubt anyone would recognize him, but I wanted to include him as a reference because he's such a core memory for me. So the design is a hand puppet with a little hand coming out at the bottom. It's fairy grass type because that's the previously mentioned tree that it grows. I came up with 4 designs for it, but I'm not happy with any of them. so I'll still need to work on them. With that, now let's move on with the starters. First, the grass starter, a firefly larva pinecone. That I will eventually evolve into a Christmas tree with the glowing end of the firefly being the tree star. I start with the silhouette and start sketching the body. This will be my process for designing all the starters. I imagine this Pokemon is very timid and relies heavily on its trainer for all its mental support. The next starter is the fire starter, a domestic goat mixed with a fireworks shell for ears. Because when I saw the domestic goat ears, they looked to me like rolled up paper that is used to make fireworks shells. I want the final evolution to be a mix between a Chinese New Year festival dragon, a goat, and fireworks. And yes, a goat dragon is a thing in fantasy. I imagine this Pokemon is very excitable and easy to provoke. It might be able to protect itself, but who is going to protect the world from it? Next is the water starter, which is a little sea sponge with legs that I want to evolve into a Ramadan iftar cannon, made out of long tubular sea sponge and a coral. As you can see, these starters still need revision, but you can see the theme of these Pokemon is holiday tradition from around the world for different holidays, and the theme for this region is fiction and fantasy versus reality and science, with the Nano Pokemon and the new evolution representing science side, and Yarn form representing fantasy side, with the starter representing both, because what's history and tradition if not mixing fantasy with reality? With that, we reached the end of this video. So tell me, what do you think? Did you like my concepts? Why and why not? Tell me your thoughts. Also, tell me your thoughts about my video style in general, for as I'm writing this, I'm still haven't come up with an edit idea for this video, so I don't know the style I'm going with to edit. So if you want to keep up with the series, please subscribe and follow me on my Instagram and Tumblr. That's where I'm most active. I also have a Bluesky, but I don't post much on there because I don't have many followers. The thing I post about the most is OC stuff. That's what I'm going to make a video about next. That's where this guy is from. He's the main OC of that story. Anyway, tell me your thoughts, and I'll see you hopefully in the future. Bye!